देखो quadratic equation है. There are different types of polynomial, linear polynomial, quadratic polynomial, cubic polynomial, biquadratic polynomial, in which quadratic polynomial is of degree, second degree polynomial is known as quadratic polynomial. So if you consider a quadratic equation, it is of degree 2. So general equation of a quadratic polynomial or quadratic equation can be represented as ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. Here a should not be 0. A should not be 0. If it is a is 0, then it cannot be quadratic. There will not be any second degree term. There will not be any second degree term. So other than a, if b is 0, c is 0, no issues. It will still remain as quadratic equation. But if a is 0, it cannot be a quadratic equation. It may be a linear equation. So in quadratic equation, if the degree is 2, that we know that the degree of the quadratic equation is 2, there should be two solutions. There should be two solutions or two roots. So if we want to find out the roots of a quadratic equation, that means at what value of x the quadratic equation, the value of the quadratic equation matches with 0. That means when you put x is equal to some value, the quadratic equation should become 0. That means the value of x, when you put some value of x, it should satisfy the quadratic equation. Then such a value is known as root of the quadratic equation. Root of the quadratic equation. So there are so many methods to calculate the roots of the quadratic equation. Method of splitting the middle term to make the perfect square, completing the perfect square. But in all the cases, we cannot apply these two methods. But by using formula method, that is meaning means quadratic formula. If we use the quadratic formula, whatever be the quadratic equation, we will be able to find out the roots of the quadratic equation. The quadratic formula is actually x is equal to minus b plus or minus under root of b square minus 4ac by 2a. This is the formula for roots of the quadratic equation. Here, if we find out the roots, there can be two roots. One is alpha, other one is beta. Generally, if we calculate the sum of the two roots, that means alpha plus beta, that is known as sum of the roots. Sum of the roots is equal to minus b upon a. If you consider the sum of the roots, it will be alpha plus beta, that is equal to minus b by a. And if you take the product of the root, that means alpha beta, that will be equal to c by a. In this quadratic formula, you can see this one particular term b square minus 4ac. That is denoted as discriminant. That is known as discriminant. Discriminant D. So, for every equation, you can plot a graph in the rectangular coordinate system or in the xy plane. If you plot the linear equation, you will be able to get the straight line, because always the linear equation always represents a straight line. Similarly, for a quadratic equation, it will always represent a curve. So, if you plot the quadratic equation in a xy plane or the rectangular Cartesian coordinate system, you will be able to get a curve like this. But how to find out the curve is, the mouth of the curve is facing upward or downward? We have to analyze the value of a. A means coefficient of x square. If the value of coefficient of x square, that means a is greater than 0, the mouth of the quadratic equation, the curve will be facing upward. Facing upward. If the value of coefficient of x square, that means a less than 0, then the mouth of the curve will be facing downward. So we can get, if a is greater than 0, we can get three possibilities. First one, you can see like this. Okay. One curve will be like this, another one will be just touching, another one will be like this. So these three possibilities are shown here. So these 2 points, intersecting point, that is known as the root of the quadratic equation alpha and beta. So if you consider this point here, alpha will be equal to beta. When you consider this point, you will not be able to get any real roots. So for this particular graph, the value of the discriminant will be always greater than 0. For this particular graph, the value of the discriminant will be always equal to 0. For this particular graph, D will be always less than 0. So we know that x-axis is known as the number line. X-axis is known as the number line. Number line means where real number exists. So anything between minus infinity to plus infinity is known as real numbers. So if you want to find out the roots of the quadratic equation, real roots of the quadratic equation, when you plot the graph, it should either intersect or touch the real number line. That means x-axis. So in this three graph, you can see that the below one is touching at intersecting at 2 points, and the middle one is touching at only 1 point. That means in these two cases, you will be able to see that real root exists. In this particular case, real root exists and both are distinct. This means when d greater than 0, it will be distinct. When d equal to 0, it will be equal, and when d less than 0, it is actually not touching the real axis or the number line. So since it is not intersecting or touching the number line, we can say that there is no real root. There will be only non-real root, or we can say that imaginary root exists for that case. So these three graphs are showing the examples of this one is when d less than 0, and this particular one is d equal to 0, and this particular one is d greater than 0. Suppose any of the questions, sample questions from here. For example, it is written as y equal to x square minus 4x plus 4. We know that it is an expansion of x minus 2 the whole square. So we can write it as y equal to x minus 2 the whole square. That means, what is the meaning of root of the quadratic equation? When you put some value of x, the y coordinate become 0. Y become 0. When you put some value of x, y becomes 0. That is known as the real root. Real root. So when you put x is equal to 2 here, when you put x is equal to 2 here, it will become 0. That means y equal to 0. That means the graph will be coming like this. So another example you can see, y equal to x square plus 2x plus 2. Here what you have to do, you have to complete the perfect score. That means this is actually not in a algebraic identity. That means you can write like this: y equal to x square plus 2x plus 1 plus 1. I splitted 2 into 2 equal parts, 1 and 1. So you can make this a algebraic identity. So you can say that y equal to x plus 1 the whole square plus 1. X plus 1 the whole square plus 1. So if you put x is equal to minus 1, when you put x is equal to minus 1, you can see that y equal to x plus 1 the whole square plus 1. This cannot be 0 at any cost. Whatever be the value of x, if you put plus or minus, whatever be the value of x plus 1 all square is always positive, because square of a number is always positive. That means when you put x is equal to minus 1 or minus 2, anything, x plus 1 whole square will be either 0 or positive. So the minimum value will be x is equal to minus 1. X is equal to minus 1. You can see that y become 0 plus 1. That means the minimum value possible for the y is 1. So that is the graph look like this. When you put x is equal to minus 1, x is equal to minus 1, when x is equal to minus 1, corresponding value of y is 1. So the graph will be coming like this. So this point is known as x is equal to minus 1 and y equal to 1. So the minimum value of this particular function is, that means y equal to x square plus 2x plus 2. For this particular quadratic equation, the value of the y is, the smallest possible value of the y is actually y equal to 1. So this is the case for a greater than 0. Similarly, if you consider a less than 0, there are also a greater than 0 means graph will be upward. A less than 0 means graph will be downward. So by seeing the coefficient of x square, you can predict what is in which direction the mouth of the curve is facing, whether it is upward or downward. When the coefficient of x square is greater than 0, the mouth will be facing upward. That means the positive side of the y-axis. And when the coefficient of x square is less than 0, that means a less than 0, the mouth of the curve will be facing downward. Here also you will be able to get 3 possibilities. First one is like this, the other one is like this, the third one is like this. First one, you can see that it is touching the number line. Number line means x-axis. It is touching at 2 points. So 2 points means there are 2 roots. That roots are real. That means alpha and beta. real and distinct. Real and distinct. Real means the graph should touch the x-axis. The graph should touch the x-axis. That means x-axis represented as number line. So here d, the value of d will be greater than 0. Here you can see that it is actually only touching. In the previous case, it is actually intersecting. That means crossing the graph, crossing the that particular line. Here only it is touching the number line. That means here alpha will be equal to beta. So in this particular case, the value of the discriminant will be equal to 0. So in the third case, you can see that it is not at all touching the number line. That means it is not at all touching the number line means if it touches the number line, then only if it touches or intersects the number line, then only we can say that real root exists. Since it is not touching the number line, there is no real root. We can say that imaginary roots are available. So for this particular case, d will be less than 0. Whether coefficient of x square greater than 0 or coefficient of x square less than 0, in both the cases, the three conditions are matching. If the value of the discriminant is greater than 0, there will be two roots which are real and distinct. If the value of the discriminant is 0, there will be two real and equal roots. And if the value of the discriminant is less than 0, no real roots, or we can say that only imaginary root exists for the particular quadratic equation. So this is the explanation for graph. If you consider any equation, you can plot like that. So if you plot the graph of y equal to ax square plus bx plus c, you will be able to see the graph like this, or any modification will be there. It may be shifting towards upward or downward, or it may be shifting towards the right or left. Whatever may be the case, this particular point is known as, because this graph look like a parabola. This is actually a parabolic graph. So in this particular parabola, this particular point is known as vertex of the parabola. Vertex of the parabola. That means linear equation always represents a straight line, but quadratic equation always represents a parabola, and the vertex of the parabola is represented like this: x comma y. X comma y. So what is the value of x comma y? If you solve the value of x and y, you will be able to see that x is minus b by 2a and y is minus d by 4a. So at value, when the value of x is equal to minus b by 2a, the corresponding value of y will be equal to minus d by 4a, where d represents b square minus 4ac. So if the graph is like this, then we can say that the minimum value of y is minus d by 4a. The minimum value of y is minus d by 4a. The maximum value of y, what will be the maximum value of y? It is going upward. So maximum value is infinity. The minimum value is minus d by 4a. So depending on the shape of the parabolic curve, if it is facing upward, there will be a minimum value of y. All the possible values will be this particular value or above that particular value. If the graph is like this, if the graph is in the other direction, this coordinate will be minus b by 2a and minus d by 4a. So when you put x is equal to minus b by 2a, in this particular graph, you will be able to see that value of the corresponding value y is known as the maximum possible value of y. That means there are two cases: minimum value of y and maximum value of y. If the graph is facing upward, the value of y is minus d by 4a, which is known as the minimum value of y. If the graph is facing downward, the mouth of the graph is facing downward, the value y equal to minus d by 4a is known as the maximum possible value of the y. So here, if you consider the range means the from which value to high, from starting value, from which starting value, which ending value, what are the possible values of y? That is known as a range of a function. So here in this particular graph, the range will be from minus d by 4a. That means range means the range of y minus d by 4a to infinity. That means the minimum value is minus d by 4a. In this particular downward graph, if you consider the range, then that can be represented as y belongs to minus infinity. Y belongs to minus infinity to minus d by 4a. That means anything from minus infinity to minus d by 4a is possible for y. And in this case, anything from minus d by 4a to plus infinity is possible. So depending on the shape of the graph, we can say that minus d by 4a is a minimum point or a maximum point. So by seeing only the graph, how to identify the graph, whether it is upward or downward? By seeing the coefficient of x square. If the coefficient of x square a is greater than 0, the graph will be upward. If the coefficient of x square a is less than 0, the graph will be downward. So another one, inequality will be difficult. Okay, we'll see. Inequality related to quadratic equation. Inequality. Before discussing inequality, we can say that, for example, 2 greater than 1, it's an inequality. So if you add some terms to this side, other side also we have to add. That means if you add 1 with both sides, so it will become 2 plus 1 means it will become 3. It will become 1 plus 1 means it will become 2. That means the sign of the direction of the inequality will not change. Similarly, if you subtract anything, for example, 2 greater than 1, if you subtract minus 3, that means minus 3, 2 minus 3 will become minus 1. 1 minus 3 become minus 2. So if you add or subtract in both sides, it will not change the direction of the inequality. It will not change the direction of the inequality. But if you, in the case of multiplication and division, if you multiply with a positive quantity, the direction of the inequality will not change. For example, 2 greater than 1. If you multiply with 3, so into 3, if you do into 3, 2 into 3, 6. 1 into 3, 3. The inequality, direction of the inequality will not change. But if you multiply with a negative quantity, for example, 2 greater than 1, if you multiply with minus 3, what is the nature? 2 into minus 3, minus 6. 1 into minus 3, minus 3. Which one is bigger? Which one is smaller? Minus 3 is bigger compared to minus 6. That means inequality, we have to change or reverse the direction. So when you add or subtract anything to the both side of the inequality, it will not affect. But when you multiply or divide with a positive constant, it will not affect. But when you multiply or divide with a negative constant, it will affect the direction of the inequality. In this particular question, x square plus x plus 1 greater than 0. If you want to solve this inequality, x square plus x plus 1, whether any real solution exists or not, that we have to check. Whether any real solution exists or not. Real solution exists or not. So if you compare this with the general quadratic equation, that means ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. You can see that a is equal to 1, b equal to 1 and c equal to 1. When you compare x square plus x plus 1 with ax square plus bx plus c, coefficient of x square is 1, coefficient of x is 1, coefficient of that constant part is 1. That means a equal to 1, b equal to 1, c equal to 1. So if the value of a is greater than 1, the graph will be upward. Graph will be upward. But there are three possibilities. It may intersect, it may touch, it may not touch. Even though in three cases, three of them are upward, but if we want a real solution, either it should intersect or it should touch. Whether it is, if you want a real solution, either it should intersect or it should touch the axis. So here, if you consider, but whether it is a greater than 0, whether a is less than 0, if we want to say whether it is intersecting or touching or not touching, we have to check the value of the discriminant. That means d. What is d? B square minus 4ac. So if you consider b square minus 4ac, b square is 1 and 4 into 1 into 1. What is the value? Minus 3. That means you are getting d equal to minus 3. That means less than 0. Less than 0 means which curve we have to consider? This one. This one. That means since d is less than 0, we cannot go for these two. This is actually for d greater than 0 and this is for d greater than 0 and this is d less than 0. So since the graph is not touching, there will not be no real solution. But we can say that whether this inequality will satisfy or not, whether this inequality is true or not. X square plus x plus 1 is greater than 0. Whether this inequality suggested is whether true or not. You got the graph x square plus x plus 1 greater than 0 means y. You are actually calculating the value of y. Y is always greater than 0. The position of the graph is always above the x-axis. The position of the graph is always above the x-axis. That means only the positive side of the x-axis. That means you can see that for this particular graph, y is always greater than 0. That means it is a true condition. It is a true condition. Similarly, second question, if you consider, here it is given as x square minus 3x plus 4 is less than 0. X square minus 3x plus 4 less than 0. What is the value of A? 1. What is the value of B? Minus 3. What is the value of C? 4. Since A is greater than 0, the graph will be upward. That means for three possibilities you will get three possibilities. But which one? Which one? First one, second one, third one. So for that you have to calculate D. D equal to B square minus 4AC. So B is actually minus 3 square 9 minus 4 into A is 1 and C is 4. It will become 9 minus 16. It will be minus 7. So you are getting D less than 0. D less than 0 means which graph? the top one. So this is the graph. This is the graph because d less than 0. Then whether this statement is true or not, x square minus 3x plus 4 is less than 0 is true or not? It is not true because x square minus 3x plus 4 less than 0 means the value of y should be always less than 0. The graph should be below the x-axis. But we can say that the graph is already above the x-axis. That means the value of y is, for all the cases, the value of y is positive. The value of y is positive. So this statement is wrong. So for any value of x, you will not be able to satisfy this condition. So if you search for value of x such that this condition satisfied means you will be getting a empty set. You will not be able to find any value of y, any value of x. That means any value of x, so that this function is, this quadratic equation becomes less than 0. That is the basic idea of inequality. There are different cases for that. For example, wavy curve method. Any idea about wavy curve method? Wavy curve method. Here you can see one equation. 1 minus x. We can take a simple one. Okay. For example, if you write x plus 1 into x minus 2 into x plus 3 less than 0. So if the quadratic equation is not in this format, that means standard format means along with x, there should not be, there should be a constant which is coefficient which is 1. So x plus 1 into x minus 2 into x plus 3. So here we can see the critical points. Critical points means x plus 1 equal to 0 means x is equal to minus 1. X minus 2 equal to 0 means x is equal to 2. X plus 3 equal to 0 means x is equal to minus 3. These are known as critical points. So we can plot in the number line. So the biggest one is 2. Then minus 1. This is minus 3. So if we plot the graph, if you consider any value greater than 3, what is the value of the equation? If we put x is equal to 3. So these are critical points. These are critical points. If you put x is equal to 3, what is the value? If you put x is equal to 3, first one 3 plus 1, 4. 3 minus 2, 1. 3 plus 3, 6. You can see all are positive. Positive into positive into positive. Positive. That means if you take any value greater than 2, the value will be positive. If you take any value between minus 1 and 2, for example, if you put plus 1, first value, what is the value? First value 1 plus 1, 2. Second value 1 minus 2, minus 1. Third value 1 plus 3. So first plus, minus, plus, minus. So in this case, minus. So if you consider any value between minus 3 and minus 1, for example, minus 2. So minus 2 plus 1, minus 1, minus 2 minus 2, minus 4, minus 2 plus 3, plus 1. So minus, minus, plus. Minus, minus, plus. Plus. That means in this case, it will be plus. It will be plus. So the expected graph will be like this. Here it is positive, then it will become minus. When it reaches x is equal to minus 1, it will become 0. Then it goes to positive. Then it will become, when x is equal to minus 3, and we again become minus. So this is the graph. This is the graph. So in this way, you can consider the plot the graph. So that is known as wavy curve method. That means, for example, another example, x plus 2 into x minus 3 into x plus 4 greater than 0. That means in this particular question, if we want to satisfy this condition, x plus 1 into x minus 2 into x plus 3 less than 0, which region are satisfying that condition? Less than 0 means this region will satisfy and this region will satisfy. This cannot satisfy because that is plus. Here also it cannot satisfy because that is plus. Because we require a value less than 0. That means negative value we require. Another example, x plus 2, x minus 3, x plus 4. What are the critical points? X is equal to minus 2, x is equal to plus 3, and x is equal to minus 4. So 3, minus 2, minus 4. So if you consider any value greater than 3, it will be plus. Minus 2 and 3, it will be minus. Between minus 4 and minus 2, it will be plus. Between less than minus 4, it will be minus. The graph will be coming like this. So if we want a greater than 0, that means this region will satisfy, this region will satisfy, this cannot satisfy, this cannot satisfy. So solution for this equation can be get it from between minus 4 to minus 2 and greater than 3. Okay. Ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. Ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. If we want to say that for any value of x, what is the meaning of identity? Whatever is the value of variable, it should satisfy. For example, a plus b the whole square equal to a square plus b square plus 2ab. If you put any value of a and b, it will satisfy. Whatever be the value of a and b, it should satisfy. Then only we can say that it is an identity. So in this particular case, in this particular quadratic equation, if you want to say that for any values of x, answer should be 0. Then what is the condition? For any values of x, the answer should be 0. Then condition, what is the condition? A should be equal to 0, B should be equal to 0, C should be equal to 0. Then only for any value of x, this will satisfy. Identity means whatever be the condition, it should satisfy. So whatever be the value of x, if it is satisfy equal to 0 means then A should be equal to 0, B should be equal to 0, C should be equal to 0. That is the condition. That means for a quadratic equation, the degree is 2. It cannot be less than 2. It cannot be greater than 2. It can be equal, no problem. It can be distinct, no problem. It can be imaginary, no problem. But there should be two roots. Cannot be less than 2, cannot be more than 2. For it is a linear equation, there will be only one root. If it is a cubic equation, there will be 3 roots. More than 3 and less than 3 cannot be satisfied. So you are given with a quadratic equation and they are saying that the roots are 3. No, they mentioned that the given quadratic equation, the equation is quadratic and there are 3 roots. Not possible. That means it is an identity. It is an identity. That means only for 2 values for a quadratic equation it will satisfy. If more than 2 it satisfy means it is a identity only. Identity only. That is a point we have to note. If there are 3 distinct real roots, then quadratic equation is quadratic equation. There will be 3 roots means there are infinite number of roots because it is a identity. Okay. No, till 540. See this one. So if you, for example, you can see one quadratic equation. We will solve with the method of splitting the middle term. X square plus 3x plus 2. X square plus 3x plus 2. Here, what is the value of A? What is the value of B? What is the value of C? What is odd coefficients? Odd coefficient means 3. That is even coefficient. Even coefficient means coefficient of x square and coefficient of x raised to 0. Coefficient of x raised to 1, coefficient of x raised to 3, coefficient of x raised to 5. They are known as odd coefficients. So here x square coefficient is 1. Coefficient of x raised to 0 means 2. Here you can see sum of the odd coefficient and equal to sum of even coefficient. 1 plus 2 equal to 3. Then we can say that x is equal to minus 1 will be always a root. If the sum of odd coefficient equal to sum of even coefficient, whether it is a cubic equation or whether it is a quadratic equation, one of the root will be always minus 1. That is a short trick. So if you put minus 1, if you put first value will be plus 1, minus 3, plus 2. That means it will satisfy the condition. Clear? Another one, x square minus 3x plus 2 equal to 0. X square minus 3x plus 2 equal to 0. Here, sum of odd coefficient plus even coefficient is equal to 0. That the condition is 1 plus 2. That is the sum of even coefficient. And the sum of odd coefficient is minus 3. If you add, you are getting 0. Then x is equal to 1 will be always a root. X is equal to 1 will be always a root. That means we can say that if a plus c equal to b, a plus c equal to b for a quadratic equation, ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. If a plus c is equal to b, then x is equal to minus 1 will be always a root. If a plus b plus c equal to 0, then x is equal to plus 1 will be always a root. Clear? So that is a general method to calculate a quadratic equation. One of the root we can identify easily. Another one shorted, if you can see 4x square plus 8x plus 3 equal to 0. 4x square plus 8x plus 3 equal to 0. What are the roots? Here you can see if you apply the method of splitting the middle term, product will be AC. Product is 4 into 3, 12. Sum will be B equal to 8. So you have to identify two numbers. The product is 12 and sum is plus 8. What is the number? You have to identify two numbers, 6 and 2. So if you got 6 and 2, you can, by using 6 and 2, you can split the middle term. But instead of that, simply divide by 6 by minus a and 2 by minus a. That will be the root. 6 by minus a, 2 by minus a. What is 6 by minus a? 6 by a is 4. So minus 4. Answer will be minus 3 by 2. And 2 by a means 2 by minus 4. Answer will be minus 1 by 2. So if we find out identify the number, simply that number can be divided with minus a. You will be able to get the exact value of root. But generally, for any case, any quadratic equation, method of perfect square will not work always. Method of splitting the middle term will not work always. But we can say that quadratic formula, whatever be the case, quadratic formula will work always when we can calculate the root of the quadratic equation. Another important point to be noted is, for example, ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. If a, b, c are real means real numbers. That means the coefficient of all the terms are real. Then we can say that if one of the root is p plus root q, the other root will be p minus root q. Condition, what is the condition? A, B, C should be real. Similarly, p plus iota q. What is iota? That is, iota is complex number. What is the difference between real number and complex number? If you take the square of a real number, it will be always positive. For example, 2.5. If you take the square, what will be the value? 6.25. Answer will be positive. If you take minus 2.5, if you want to check that it is a real number, you have to take the square. But if square of a negative number is always positive, so again you are getting 6.25. That is also positive. So if you provided with a number, and if you want to identify whether it is a real number or not, just take the square. If you take the square, if the value is positive, then it will be pakka real number. That means that number we can represent on a number line. Another thing, for example, minus 1, this is a number. Whether it is real or not, square root of a negative number is not defined. That means it is not real. But if you want to check, you take the square. This under root and square will get cancelled. You are getting minus 1. If the square of a given number is negative, it is not real. It is imaginary. This is imaginary. Another example, root minus 4. If you want to say that it is real or not, just to take the square. This square and under root cut, answer will be minus 4. You are getting a negative value. That means this person is also not real. That means you cannot represent this number on a number line. So any number that can be represented on a number line is known as real number. Otherwise, it is not real. So this root minus 1, the member of the imaginary world, this is known as iota. The name of this root minus 1 is iota. For example, root minus 4, we can write it as 4 into minus 1. And this can be written as 4 into root minus 1. Root 4, what is root 4? 2. Root minus 1, iota. So root of minus 1 can be written as 2 iota. This iota, this person is known as imaginary person. So wherever iota is there, that will be always imaginary. That means till 10th standard we are studying that if the value of the discriminant is less than 0, no real root. From 11th standard onwards we will study there will be imaginary root, no real, that will remain as such. But from 11th standard onwards we will study, instead of no real root we will say that there is imaginary root. Okay, today we will conclude this topic. Okay, thank you.